Hi guys, Dr. Rachel Hippolyte here. Okay, so we spoke about what was good for your brain, what you can do at home. Now let's talk about what's bad for your brain, and probably what most of us um, do a little bit too much, and what has got us into these mental and physical health problems. Okay, so let's start with stress. Okay, so stress is perceived. Your brain does not do well with stress. Okay, when your prefrontal cortex is still working okay, then you're able to be logical about that stress. You're able to be controlled with the emotions. The problem is chronic stress. Chronic stress overwhelms the brain, makes it desynchronized, drops your prefrontal cortex, and means that your emotional brain, your limbic system, your fight, flight, freeze part of your brain then becomes overactive. Okay, poor emotional regulation, we're angry, we're irritable, we're sad, we're anxious. Okay, so stress is the number one, and most of our stress comes from our own heads. Okay, when we're in emotional brain, we will always see the negatives, we will always look for the what ifs. Remember, our emotional brain has no logic, it thinks there's a threat. So there is no positive when we look for threats. So constantly being negative, constantly the what ifs, constantly worrying is a sign that your prefrontal cortex isn't working as well as it should. So initially, it might be overwhelmed within your external environment, but eventually it then becomes your internal environments that keeps that stress alive, purely because your prefrontal cortex isn't healthy. Okay, number two, not enough sleep. In the last video, we spoke about how important sleep is for your brain. Most of us don't sleep enough. We're constantly watching movies till late, too late, getting up too early, often on our phones, which means the blue light, which means we don't get into that proper sleep. So sleep is absolutely important, and having that routine of sleep. I've become a bit obsessed by sleep because I know how bad I feel if I don't get a good night's sleep. So sleep, not sleeping, really important. So get a really good bedtime regime. Maybe not too many exciting movies, too much time on your phone before you go to bed, and actually have a bedtime. You really need between, oh God, I probably need 9 hours a night, but between 7 to 8 hours a night as an adult, much more as a child. Um, so poor foods, we all know, we've all been told, we all learnt in school what the important foods are for good health, which basically means good brain health. So it's your fruit and veg, your protein. Look, your carbohydrates. There is some evidence that carbohydrates can cause inflammation. I actually believe that you need carbohydrates. Carbohydrates help us produce serotonin. I do believe that probably a lot of us eat too many carbohydrates and not enough of the healthy stuff. If you don't have a good diet, take a vitamin. Because at least you're feeding the hardware of your brain with the vitamins and minerals that it needs. Um, Drugs and alcohol. Well, we spoke about that in the last one. Drugs and alcohol are not good for your brain. It's as simple as that. So as we said, alcohol is a depressant. Just going to talk about alcohol and marijuana because they're obviously the main ones. Um, Alcohol is a depressant. Marijuana's a depressant. Most people take it because they're feeling stressed in order to decrease that stress. But all it does is it decreases the whole function of the brain. So the prefrontal cortex then drops even more. So, look, my view. not for marijuana, obviously, especially in those young brains. Certainly, in alcohol, just limit it. Um, you really shouldn't be drinking every day, and you shouldn't be drinking excessively. Saying that, I do love a glass of wine. Okay. Overworking. I can be one for this, or I am one for this. Never being turned off, never having that downtime. If you run your own business, I can guarantee you overwork. You don't have that time out. And that is so important for your mental and your physical health. Having downtime to do the things that you love, where you're really not thinking about work. If it is your own business, often I see clients who come in just totally overwhelmed because they are literally on 24/7 about their business. But working for others as well, I have a huge amount of people that can't say no. And so their work is then putting huge amounts of stress on them and they're working ridiculous amount of hours. That business will not care if you break. One of the things that a lot of my brain training clients learn to do is set boundaries. Okay. They set boundaries. They've never liked to say no, especially if they've got that anxious brain, that non confrontational brain. And all of a sudden they realize that they have to say no in order to be healthy themselves. You cannot keep giving if you've got nothing left to give. You will literally break. Being selfish is self care. Okay. Honestly, it's one of the biggest things, learning to say no. And I have to say, I'm not great at it. I'm getting better though. Um, and those are the main ones: overworking, never having downtime, never saying no, excessive anything. Remember, I just said excessive exercise, excessive eating, anything excessive, excessive no exercise. Really, really not good for you. Stress is the biggest one. Do the things that we spoke about in the last video to try and decrease that stress. When your brain's functioning better, you will deal with stress much better. When your brain's not functioning as well, you'll actually start making your own stresses and keeping that stress alive. Okay, hope that makes sense, love. Limit the negatives that have an effect on your brain and try and improve with the positives and at least have a bit of balance there. You want more good than you want bad. If you then have a weekend where you have more bad, you want to increase that good. Okay, guys.